In 1952, a 62-year-old man was living out of his car. He had just lost his roadside restaurant after a highway was rerouted away from his location. His life savings, gone. His income, gone. His identity, gone. Most people would have called it the end. He called it the beginning. Harlan David Sanders drove across the United States sleeping in his car, knocking on restaurant doors, offering to cook his chicken recipe in exchange for a small percentage of every sale. He was rejected over 1,000 times. By the time he sold Kentucky Fried Chicken in 1964, he was 74 years old, and the brand was valued at $2 million. Today, KFC generates over $23 billion annually. Colonel Sanders didn't start over at 62. He arrived at 62, finally equipped with everything the journey had been building. And if you think his story is an exception, psychology says otherwise. Here's what nobody in Silicon Valley wants to admit. The average age of a first-time founder at a billion-dollar company is not 24. It's not 28. It's not even 35. It's 45, according to MIT research published in 2018. And the fastest-growing segment of new business owners in the United States right now is people over 55. So why does every entrepreneurship conversation still sound like it's written for a 26-year-old in a hoodie? If starting over at 60 sounds terrifying to you, stay with me. Because the psychology of what happens to the human mind after a full career is far more interesting than anyone is telling you. Here's what decades of work actually build inside a person that no MBA program can replicate. Pattern recognition. The ability to see a problem and instantly connect it to something you've seen before. In 2010, a Stanford study found that experienced entrepreneurs identified viable business opportunities 3 times faster than first-time founders. Not because they were smarter, but because their brains had decades of pattern libraries to draw from. Young founders learn pattern recognition through expensive failure. Retirees already have it installed. Risk calibration. Not fearlessness, which is actually dangerous in business, but the ability to distinguish between risks worth taking and risks that look exciting but lead nowhere. Research from the Kauffman Foundation found that founders over 55 have significantly lower business failure rates than founders under 35. Not because they take fewer risks, because they take better ones. Network depth, not followers, not LinkedIn connections. Real relationships built over 30 years with people who actually return your calls, open doors that aren't listed anywhere, and vouch for you in rooms you'll never enter. And emotional regulation. The ability to absorb a crisis without it becoming an identity crisis. To lose a client, a deal, or an entire quarter, and still show up the next morning with clear judgment intact. A 2019 Harvard Business Review study found that emotional regulation was the single strongest predictor of founder resilience during business downturns. More than capital, more than experience, more than market timing. Young founders spend their first 5 years acquiring these 4 skills through pain. Retirees walk in with all 4 already installed. But here's where it gets psychologically uncomfortable. If retirees are statistically better equipped to build businesses, why do so few try? The biggest barrier isn't capital. It isn't market knowledge. It isn't even energy. It's identity. For 30 or 40 years, your answer to who are you was your job title. Director, engineer, teacher, partner. Retirement removes that title. And for many people, that removal doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like erasure. Psychologist Erik Erikson called this the integrity versus despair conflict, the late-life psychological struggle between finding deep meaning in what you've built versus feeling that your most productive and relevant years are permanently behind you. People who resolve this conflict toward integrity don't retire from identity. They evolve it. The retirees who start businesses aren't running from that conflict. They're answering it directly. They're saying, I am not my last job title. I am the sum of everything I learned inside it. And that reframe, from identity as position to identity as capability, is the single psychological shift that makes everything else possible. Vera Wang didn't enter the fashion industry until she was 40, after careers in figure skating and journalism. Today, her brand is worth over $1 billion. Charles Darwin published On the Origin of Species at 50. After years of quiet, methodical observation, the modern startup world would have called too slow and unfundable. None of them were starting over. They were arriving, finally carrying everything the journey had been building toward. The question is not whether you have enough time left. The question is whether you're willing to redefine what the time you have is actually for. Because the most dangerous thing about retirement isn't running out of money. It's running out of purpose before you run out of time. If this shifted something, the only tuition we charge is a like. 5 minutes. One shift. No fluff. Subscribe to the 300 Seconds University for more insights.